Hello, this is the RPG Crawler, and it is time once again for Indie Game Friday, where each week I take a look at an independent role-playing game. This week we're going low fantasy with Battle Brothers, a tactical RPG that recently came out of early access. Developed and published by Overhype Studios, it is currently available on Steam for $29.99 US, with other tiers available and a soundtrack DLC. Battle Brothers puts you in charge of a mercenary company in a gritty low fantasy world. There's an ongoing campaign mode that lets you name your group, select a difficulty level, and then select whether there's a late game crisis you have to deal with or not. Difficulty levels modify combat and economic difficulty as one would expect, while the late game crisis determines whether an invasion of orcs, undead, or the like sweeps over the world if you survive long enough. There's also a scenario mode, which simply puts you into various tactical combats with pre-built teams. The story starts with you as a member of a mercenary company watching your comrades cut down during an ambush. It leaves you in charge of but a few defeated and demoralized mercenaries, looking to rebuild your way to fame and fortune bit by bit. The world you are placed with is randomized, as are the various towns you'll encounter and the contracts you might pick up, making for a high degree of replayability. Every combat field is similarly placed in a randomized tactical map, meaning that each encounter will vary quite a bit, and can put you in a tactical disadvantage at times. Gameplay takes place in two main components. The first is exploring the overworld map and going from town to town. In each town, you will have access to various buildings depending on what that town has access to, can purchase supplies, and accomplish tasks like training, hiring, and buying rounds for the troops, as well as picking up contracts. You can also purchase various trade goods which can sell in other towns you encounter for various amounts. Supplies for your mercenaries, beyond their basic gear and combat equipment, fall into four categories. First is your crowns, or your money, which are needed to purchase gear and other supplies, hire mercenaries, and make payroll. You get this from successful jobs as well as selling various goods. Other than that, you have provisions which are needed to feed your mercenaries during travel, repair tools that are used to repair and upkeep arms and armor, and healing supplies which are used to treat injuries. Repairing gear and healing injuries automatically takes place while exploring, and may take significant amounts of time. Provisions also go bad gradually, and the various types of provisions you can purchase have different expiration times, so to speak. Running out of crowns or provisions during exploration will result in your mercenaries beginning to desert you based on their loyalty. Individual mercenaries can be developed as unique characters. Each one has a background that modifies their starting abilities. Things like their resolve and morale may change over time. Hit points and skills like melee skill and ranged defense may change at each level up, and things like initiative, damage, body, and head armor change depending on which armor your character wears. A character wearing heavy armor and wielding heavy weapons will generally have a lower initiative, and accumulate fatigue faster than one wearing light armor and gear. Characters may equip one- or two-handed weapons, shields, helms, body armor, and ammunition. They may also equip secondary weapons and other gear in their bags, which they can switch out in combat. Accessories may also be equipped, such as bandages or war dogs. When a character levels up, they may select up to 3 abilities to increase, as well as select a perk point. Perk points are divided into various tiers, with each providing passive effects that may be undertaken in combat. You have to spend a number of perks equal to the number of tiers at each prior level in order to unlock the next, but you don't have to spend them on higher tiers. So in order to unlock Tier 3, for example, you merely have to spend 2 perks on any combination of Tier 1 and Tier 2 perks. This means that they're not necessarily laid out in a tree, but can be selected at any time. You can have a number of characters in various ranks, and a few in reserve to tend to injuries that they may receive in battle. This can help you set up your overall tactical gear at the start of a particular battle, as well as keep characters out of the fight entirely if you're concerned about a total loss. While exploring, you can come across various lairs, camps, or even wandering monsters and bands of bandits or other armies, and contact with them can result in battles. the second major part of the game. Battles take place on a randomized hex grid and are turn-based, with individual characters' initiatives determining what order they go in. Characters can take a number of actions, from attacks to movements to item use, all based on how many action points they have on their turn. Each action also generates a number of fatigue, which means you'll have to gauge how much a character can do in relation to their remaining fatigue before you commit. A character's available actions depend on their gear, with weapons and shields often having a few different sorts of attacks or defensive options available. Each character also exerts a zone of control, which can stop enemy movement unless they are willing to take some hits getting past. Each hex on the grid has a certain altitude as well, and having high ground is beneficial, in that it extends ranged attacks and provides a benefit to attack and defense. When a character is hit, depending on the attack, they may suffer damage to hit points, armor points, or usually both. Armor tends to absorb most non-penetrating hits, resulting in less damage actually getting through to the character. This is important because damage that does get through to the character has a chance to wound them, reducing their effectiveness and their morale. Wounds may take a few days to heal outside of combat. Furthermore, critical hits have a chance to instantly slay a character. Chopping down at an opponent's head and decapitating them can just demolish them in a single hit. Characters also have a morale rating, and if it gets too low, they may run from combat regardless of what you'd rather they do. Combat does tend to have a lot of depth as a result and can be rather deadly. Even though this is a fantasy game and you may encounter fantasy creatures, don't expect to be fielding squads of mages or have your wounds instantly healed. This is strictly a low fantasy game with a gritty, real-world feel. Another thing to consider when back on the world map is faction standing. There are generally 3 noble houses per game, as well as unaligned cities, and each of these can be adjusted based on your character's actions. This not only impacts how much you may pay for goods and services within that town's faction, but may also affect how willing said towns may be to give you mercenary contracts of various levels. The mercenary contracts are your bread and butter, and may be as simple as killing a local group of bandits to accompanying a caravan halfway across the known world. An interesting part of the game is that you can negotiate these contracts, either demanding more immediate pay, money up front on contracts that don't offer it, or an increase in pay once the contract is fulfilled. You'll need to balance this all out depending on your immediate needs at the time, and there's no guarantee that a contract may actually acquiesce to your demands. Sadly, you may have only one contract at a time, so gathering several in the same area to do all at once is not an option. So there's the gameplay. How about the graphics and sound? Graphically, the game is highly stylized, especially in combat, with units reflecting their current gear, but also resembling more along the lines of game pieces sliding across a board. Still, it gets the job done, and the sprites and backgrounds are all generally clean, responsive, and informative. The music is actually really excellent. It's atmospheric and does help set the mood quite well. I'm almost inclined to recommend the soundtrack DLC, but it doesn't quite get there for me. This may vary on your end. All in all, I really honestly like this game. I'm not going to comment on the price point too much. It's about adequate for the quality and replayability of this game at the core entry point. I'd have to play it for way longer than I was able to for this review to just tell whether the gameplay gets repetitive or not, but honestly, Battle Brothers was right up my alley in terms of games that I've been craving lately. If you enjoy competently crafted low fantasy mercenary style team building, then it's definitely worth a look. And I will leave it at that. Link will be to the store page in the description below as always. This has been the RPG Crawler with Indie Game Friday, Battle Brothers. If you like what you've seen, remember to leave a like, comment if you've got feedback, and subscribe for more RPG content. If you want to support this channel, please consider my Patreon at patreon.com/rpgcrawler or through the links below or at the end of the video. Until next time, take care and goodbye.